Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll,
And I'm John Suarez.
and in this episode, we're going to talk about the Dungeons of Death deck from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, headed up by Sefris of the Hidden Ways as the commander. So, out of the four decks, this is the one that really focuses on the dungeon mechanic, the dungeon kind of delving deck. And it is a white, blue, black deck with Sefris of the Hidden Ways being the commander. It is a 2/3 human wizard. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, venture into the dungeon. This ability triggers only once each turn. And create undead. Whenever you complete a dungeon, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So not only is it mixing in the new dungeon mechanic, it actually gives you the little bit of the bonus of also being a reanimator, which is nice. I think one of the things from previous sets when they've done that and had the commander decks that kind of focus around the set mechanic or the legendary creature that focus around the set mechanic, it does fall flat a little bit because it's really focused on that and it's kind of limited. Whereas this one focuses on it, but also gives you that extra added benefit of just being a reanimation as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm not like I said before, this set isn't, I don't have the nostalgia effect from Dungeons and Dragons, but I will say one of the things I really do like about this set is the venture mechanic in general. The dungeons seem really sweet. Very excited to play with that.
yeah, there are 3 dungeons in the set. You can get them very easily. They're just on tokens. If you go to a pre-release, you get foil copies of all 3, which is really sweet. I'm definitely picking those up. And let's talk about some of these other cards that you're going to be adding into the Dungeons of Death. So the first thing is obviously to look at the other cards in the set that are not in this deck that interact with the dungeon or the venture into the dungeon mechanic. The first one is going to be Yuan Ti Malaysian. Yuan Ti is a creature type in Dungeons and Dragons. It's basically a snake rogue kind of creature. And this one can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. It's a 2/1 for 1 and a blue. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon. So you get that automatic one. So if this is the only one that's attacking, great. You just get that automatic trigger on it. Pretty simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
But later in the game, might not be as great, but I still think it's a lot of fun. So
For sure. Next card up we have is another one of those creatures that ventures into the dungeon in Triumphant Adventurer. Black-white, death touching 1/1. As long as it's your turn, it has first strike, which means it's basically just going to attack for 1 every time and no one's going to block it. And whenever it attacks, you venture into the dungeon. It doesn't actually have to deal damage to the player. Just needs to turn sideways and get into combat. Pretty good way of getting into the dungeon.
Yeah, I think I think it's a really good way of getting into the dungeon. I think they really hit it out of the park with this one, giving it death touch. Yep. And if it's your turn, it has first strike. Nobody's really going to be blocking this. So you're going to get to turn this sideways and you're going to get to venture into the dungeon almost every turn that you're able to, as long as it's not, wrathed or pathed or something. Like nobody's going to be blocking this.
But no one wants to use that on your little 1/1 either, right?
So. Exactly. So I think this one to me is just a really excellent card. Really good one in this one. Speaking of another really excellent card in this set that goes right into, this is one of the ones that we've talked about before, that when you look at the main set, you look at a card and you go, oh, this one was like almost made specifically to be planted to be put into the commander deck. And that is Barrowin of Clan Undur, 3/3 dwarf cleric for 2 black-white. When it enters the battlefield, venture into the dungeon. Whenever it attacks, return up to 1 creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield if you've completed a dungeon. So it's checking all the boxes that this deck wants to do. And it's very easy, slides right into the deck. You're going to go, enter the battlefield, venture, and then reanimate. Super great card for this deck.
Yep. The next card I have a little bit of a problem with, again, from if you've watched our last upgrade video. This is Nadar, Selfless Paladin. It is a legendary creature, Dragon Knight. I did not know that dragons didn't have flying. I've never, in any pop culture reference, anything I've ever really dealt with, have found a dragon other than Dragon Egg that doesn't have flying. I'm losing my mind here. This is 2 videos in a row. Anyways, legendary creature, Dragon Knight for 3. It's a 3/3 with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, venture into the dungeon. And then other creatures you control get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon. This card is really sweet. You get the trigger when it comes in and every time it attacks. That's awesome. but it doesn't have
Yeah.
flying. And that
So
bothers me.
yeah, there's a collection of cards that all venture into the dungeon. These are some really great ones to put into this deck, I think. But you can also add in any of the other ones that have it. There are a bunch of commons and uncommons that can go into the deck if that's what you're really focusing on, trying to run through that dungeon as fast as you can. The next one is one that I really enjoy. I've been trying to find a home for this in my Garna deck, and I waffle on it constantly of whether or not I should put it in. And it's Tortured Existence. It's a 1-mana enchantment for a single black, and it says, for a black, choose and discard a creature card. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's really great for your commander to put those creatures into your graveyard that you want to reanimate later. And if you're really digging into that theme, it's really, really useful utility card for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and you can get one of your small creatures back very easily and play it again. Yeah, it's a great card. I like
It's also very flavorful, right? Like the guy's in a dungeon being tortured. It's perfect. It's exactly what you want from this.
Yep.
All right. The next card we have is one of my favorite enchantments of all time, and that is Attunement. 2 colorless and a blue enchantment, and it's one of the awkward enchantments because you just return it to your hand. That's how you activate its abilities. Return it to your hand, you draw 3 cards, and then you choose and discard 4 cards. Historically, this card is being used to pitch a bunch of enchantments, to do some naughty stuff, bringing enchantments back. But in here, it's just going to be bringing back creatures, right? You're going to be able to discard the big creatures and hopefully draw cards that let you bring them back. So, very sweet card, very easy way of digging very, very quickly.
Yeah, and it's because it's a just return it to its owner's hand as the actual cost for it. You can do this whenever, so you can do it just as you're about to finish a dungeon and your commander triggers. You just, put the attunement back in my hand, draw the cards, discard my big creature. It goes right in. So, really excellent card. The next one, if you've played Commander over the last, year or so, you probably know this one. If you played against anything black or played a black deck, and that's Sir Conrad the Grim. It's just another great way to put the creature cards into your graveyard, and that's pretty much it. You're going to trigger your commander pretty efficiently with this, with the 1 and a black. Each player mills a card pretty consistently. Plus, you're going to get that added benefit of when those creatures go into your graveyard, it's going to ping all your opponents for 1.
Yeah. Sir Conrad is a very, very powerful card. Anybody who's been playing Commander for the last 1.5 years knows to fear that card when you see it.
Yeah.
So next card I'm going to go to is an artifact, and that is Strionic Resonator. 2 mana, pay 2, tap it, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Pretty sweet. Obviously works very well with your commander. Like this is just a very powerful card for anything where you have a bunch of triggers going on that you would love to have more copies of. I don't know. I guess it does it copy a venture into the dungeon? That is a trigger. It comes into play and it triggers the venture, right? I don't know if you can copy it though. It should,
I'm pretty sure.
I would think so.
I mean, so the commander itself says whenever one or more creatures' cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, venture into the dungeon. This ability only triggers once each turn. But if you can double it with Strionic Resonator, you get to venture twice.
I'm in for that.
Is how I'm reading it.
That's a real quick way through the first room.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I do enjoy Strionic Resonator as a card. So
yep.
Next one is another way. We've had several ways of getting creatures into your graveyard through milling and through like discarding and stuff like that. The other obvious way is sacrificing your own creatures. Viscera Seer, great card to do that for. It's pretty common that you're going to see it in any black deck that wants to be messing around with its own graveyard. It's simple, 1/1 for a black, sacrifice a creature, scry 1. Pretty standard and very cheap too.
Yep.
So.
And the last card we would add to this is Noxious Gearhulk. 6 mana artifact creature, 5/4 with menace. The random keyword that everybody forgets that this card has. And when it enters the battlefield, you can destroy another target creature, and the creature that's destroyed that way, you gain life equal to its toughness. So this is a very, at 6 mana, it's a card you can cast relatively easily, and it's also a really good target to reanimate.
Yeah, there's some decent reanimation targets in the deck already with your, you've got your standard Meteor Golem. You've got things that are really sweet, like Cloud Blazer. You've got Cataclysmic Gear Hulk,
Sun
stuff like
Titan.
that. Ash Rider, your Sun Titan, your pretty standard stuff. And just having another utility card like that comes in, blows something up, gains you a little bit of extra life. And like you said, everybody forgets it has Menace.
Yep.
So just another easy way to have a pretty sizable creature that can attack fairly easily. So.
Yep.
So those are the cards that we would add into the deck. As far as cards that we would take out of the deck, this one's kind of a little bit more difficult to me. I think there are a few cards that really stand out as not quite going with the theme. I think Murder of Crows is one of those, just because it is a 5 mana 4/4 flyer. Whenever another creature dies, you can draw a card if you do discard a card. So it loots.
Yeah.
On a 4/4 for 5 body. That's fine, but you're already playing stuff like Merfolk Looter in the deck. And there's another, like, the other thing is there's a lot of other cards that are going to be like cycling that I would highly suggest. We've got like Eternal Dragon in here, and Curator of Mysteries. I would definitely go over another cycling card over Murder of Crows myself.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see what else we have. We have Wand of Orcus, a 3-mana legendary equipment from this set. And it's whenever a equipped creature attacks or blocks, and zombies you control, whenever it attacks or blocks, it and zombies you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Tongue twister. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a 2/2 black zombie token. So not a bad card by any means.
Yeah.
It's just not what you're really trying to do.
Yeah, like I can definitely see this going into a zombie deck very easily.
Yes.
But there are no zombies in the deck to start off with. So it is kind of one of those things where you're really hoping that first one goes through, deals damage, and gets you those zombies that you've got, and then you build your army from there.
Yeah, I think I saw like maybe one zombie.
I was looking around and
I think your Champion of Wits when it comes back is a zombie. But I mean, we're stretching here, right? So like,
yeah, when you've got your come back from the graveyard ability for that, it's like
we're stretching for that. So
you're stretching a little bit. So
it's definitely not a bad card. It just doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, I could see it in other decks. I could see playing it in this one, and it could be a lot of fun. But I think if you're going to be upgrading the deck, it's an easy one to cut.
Yeah.
The next one is Min Wily Illusionist, which is another one that I don't think really goes with like the theme of, trying to draw and make, reanimate and get through the dungeon and stuff. So Min Wily Illusionist is a 1/3 for 1 blue gnome wizard. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. And whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. So it's a great way to cheat creatures in that are much bigger, with those, like we were just talking about, when you're going to be playing your Meteor Golems and your Ashen Riders. If you get a bunch of those illusion creatures into play, and then they die, you can very easily replace that with one of those really big creatures. And so that's kind of sweet. But the deck is also, like, I think that you can very, very much tune it more towards that trying to draw on everybody's turn.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit focused on kind of your turn. It's got some looters and stuff, so that helps with that, but not quite where I want to be with it.
Yep.
That's just me.
I agree. I think that was pretty much all we really chose out of this deck. Again, there's some lands that are somewhat questionable. The original Odyssey filter lands are they're not the best. They're not horrible, and if you don't have anything to replace them, they'll suffice. But otherwise, those are easy ones to upgrade.
There's the Innistrad ones. Yeah, like Port Town, things like that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of those.
Yeah, they're like fine, not great. I mean, this one does have some really good ones. It has a high market, and it has Skyreach Sanitarium, which are great. I think the only other one that I was looking at that I was kind of hesitant on was like maybe Component Pouch, which is an artifact from this, specifically in this deck. 3 mana, tap, remove component counter from it, add 2 mana of different colors, and then you can tap it to roll a d20. And then if you get 1 through 9, put a component counter on it. If you get 10 through 20, put 2 component counters on it. So it kind of has to build up So it's not super great in this deck. You can definitely
Sure.
replace it with another, mana rock pretty easily. I think if you're playing a deck that wants to roll a bunch of dice, probably a little bit better. If you can proliferate it, super great. But that's like the last one I think that I would be like, yeah, you probably want to set that on the sidelines for now. So that is the Dungeons of Death deck from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. I know I'm really excited for this set. I'm excited to pick up all of these commander decks. And if you are looking to pick those up, you can pick those up at starcitygames.com. You can pre-order those now. Also, make sure to let us know what cards you would add to the deck in the comments below. Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll. Thanks for watching.